I was coming down.
This might be this. Now that was a wild Saturday, but let's start on early afternoon Friday, the day before.
Pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
So this was our second Gunks Not Dead. This is the third annual. It's an alt cycling event with 3 days, 2 nights of camping, a main ride on Saturday, and choose your own adventure type rides and other activities on the Friday or the Sunday. Brad and I went straight to work on getting our camp set up. I knew I wanted to be right on the ridge where I saw people set up last year. It just looked like a cool spot. Then we went down, signed in, found our registration, our packets and all that, had a sandwich, and started chatting with some of our friends who were also there early. Our friends Brad and Tim were volunteering a parking shift that they were going to get done with at 4, and they said at that time they were going to go for a waterfall ride. We hadn't done this ride before, so we decided we'd tag along with them. A decent-sized group formed to do that, but looking at Instagram later, I saw that other people had went and rode some of the gravel roads. There's also mountain biking nearby. That's what we did on the Friday last year when we were here. It was actually an organized ride on that Friday if you could go to if you wanted to. This year, everyone kind of did whatever they felt like and formed their own groups or just hung out. I had brought this cheap Yashica point-and-shoot camera I've had for a while and just threw some expired T-Max in it. I also had my Canon R8 with me for some digital images, and this is all filmed on my GoPro Hero Black 12 for the video. It was a cool group on this ride. I made some new friends. I talked to some people I had already met at these events before. I always say that in this video. If you're thinking about coming out to one of these, just do it. I talked to a couple people who said they had never been to any kind of alt cycling event or any kind of big group event with bikes in general. I know it can sometimes look like a bit of an exclusive club, but that's not the case at all. Everyone is really friendly. Of course, you want to talk to the people you only see a couple times a year, but yeah, show up. You'll get along with everyone. You've got bikes to talk about. I didn't film a ton of the road part up to the waterfall. It was 7 miles and over 1,000 feet, and as I mentioned, I was chatting with a bunch of people on the way. But one thing I always love about coming out east and being either in New England or the Hudson Valley is how many of these trails you're allowed to ride your bikes on. Back home, a trail like this would only be for hiking. You would not be allowed to bring your bike back here.
Damn it. Tell me what you think about the waterfall.
It's beautiful.
Kerhonkson beautiful.
It was a beautiful Friday evening, as you can see, but a lot of the talk on Friday was about the weather that was coming on Saturday, so which route people would be choosing with the cold and the predicted rain. The ride back went incredibly fast as it was basically just a 1,200-foot descent off the mountain. This event takes place in Kerhonkson, New York, which is kind of in the Hudson Valley region. The ridge we're looking at from the campsite is the Shawangunk Ridge. People shorten the name to just the Gunks. If you've never been there, you have to go. Minnewaska State Park and that whole area up there is absolutely stunning. We were there in the fall a couple years ago, and I have some of my favorite photos I've ever taken, and the carriage trails up there are so beautiful to ride. I will link that video on the end screen in case you want to check it out and you've never seen that area. The rest of the evening was mostly just hanging out, talking to old friends, meeting new people, hanging out around the fire, pizza party, the route planning meeting, and if you were doing a certain ride called Lost in the Sauce, loading your bike onto the box truck. Some people rode to the Starlight Motel for cocktails. There was also a chance to go roller skating if you wanted to do that. A ton of people did it last year. I think it got a little late this year and Les did it. They also had a cake for Shady's birthday. This was definitely a cool spot to wake up to. I went down, grabbed coffee and breakfast, but brought it back up to my tent to enjoy the view. Brad was checking in with Ames. He had a bag labeled plates, which had plates in it. I have to say, I think this is the first time I've been at an alt cycling camping event where the coffee situation that they planned worked out. Usually bring a backup just in case. It just seems like they can never have enough coffee for everyone, so it was pretty cool that they did this time. I had this weird anxiety of not being with my bike. I don't know why. I usually get it ready the night before anyways, but I guess it's just one of those things where whatever you want to tweak in the morning or go over it, I don't know. It's not the fault of the ride. This was a cool concept. It just was something that felt weird to me. Anyways, Miggy had said he chartered these 2 school buses, yellow school buses, because he never got a ride on them as kids. So quite the adventure to be riding up the mountain. Driving up the mountain. You could ride up the mountain if you wanted to, but it would have been a crazy ride. It was actually kind of scary on these buses. The switchbacks were intense. This was very steep, very long climb. I think a lot of people were already a little apprehensive about the route. On top of it, it started raining, and then our bus broke down. So we started walking. So maybe some foreshadowing. So the other bus dropped off that group of riders and then came back and picked us up. By the way, when they did pack up our bike, you could tell they were packed by people who care about bikes. They put moving blankets over each one. So it was pretty nice to do that and then know everything was safe and taken care of.
Diamond, that means it works.
The first half of this route to get to lunch was only on cue sheets, so there was no GPX file, Strava, Ride with GPS, anything like that. So we had plastic bags with our sheets in it. I had decided on this day that I was going to just try and follow people. That might have come back to bit me a little bit later on down the road. Mr. Natty set us off on our way. He couldn't ride this year because of sciatic pain issues, which I know all about. They are a nightmare, so I felt bad for him on that, but at least he was still out here hanging out. So we were off into the woods on some slick, rocky, and very steep trails. I said to Brad, how can we still possibly be climbing after that bus drive? I think he answered me with, these other mountains. This was one of those days where there's just no good clothing choices. It was in the 30s. It was raining when we started. I was wearing the rain cape, but after the steep climbs, a lot of us had already stopped to take a layer off, and I took that off. Underneath that, I was wearing a wool base layer, a sun shirt, and then a surly wool jersey. I was wearing wool tights, wool socks that went up to almost to my knees, and then just my Vans slip-ons. Trying to manage the rain cape on an off-road ride like this, I don't think I would do it again. I think maybe I would bring my regular rain jacket, and then instead of ditching that, ditching the surly wool layer. I don't know, I've talked about this a million times. I just don't really like rain gear. I think it's almost always too hot. Then you end up getting wet. Then you ended up getting cold on descents. This whole day was climbing, get a little warm, start descending, get a little cold. As you can see, the whole beginning of this ride was that no foot down challenge type thing. You're just trying to keep the pedals turning and keep yourself upright.
Oh, shit. Bad line.
There were some people still trying to avoid getting their feet wet and not going through the center of the puddles. Those optimistic people. I was really enjoying this riding at first. I knew we had a long way to go and it was slow going, but it's fun out here in the woods, and just once you get into it, just cut right through the mud.
Down the middle.
If I was at home, would I go out on a day like this? Probably not. And there were some people who did like a more chill pizza route. There was another route that we crossed paths with at lunch. But for me, we drove all this way. This is like 8 hours. I'm here to ride the chunk. And so whatever the weather does, usually when I come out to a ride like this, I'm going to do the full thing, or the full ATB experience, as Miggy had called it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, damn. How are we still going up after that drive? Now we need to hot tail it to the next group. Or wait for the previous group.
You said pick up stick, and I was like, 1, 2, follow my shoes.
I didn't put it in an easy enough gear. Yeah, it's a real excuse. It's a real excuse. Ouch.
So the first section of woods was done, and then we had some seriously steep road climbs. Apparently I didn't film a lot of it, probably because I was just busy climbing, and I know we were chatting as well. I dropped Brad and the group I was with on those climbs. I just felt really good on this day. I'm just too strong.
$11 miles, 1,700 feet.
So there were a bunch of people regrouping when I got to that spot, and so I caught on with them and followed. As I said, I wasn't routing this day. I had just decided for a change I was just going to follow and not be on top of it. I was hoping that Brad and everyone else would catch up to me while we were waiting, but they didn't, and I didn't want to wait any longer for the fear that I would get real cold just standing there. So I took off with this group for a while. So we were following a trail here that turned out not to be a trail, or it was a trail for a while and then it wasn't a trail. So there was a little discussion that I just listened to about had we made a wrong turn. It was finally decided we did, and we turned around.
Lost in the woods.
This right here is the turn we actually missed. Plenty of references were made to the name of the route, Lost in the Sauce. Brad and I did a live stream discussing why do stuff like this, like why pay to do stuff like this. Is this what we think fun is? And I mean, the truth is, yes, we do. I'll link that live stream at the end with the other video I mentioned. But one of the other things I enjoy about doing something like this with a group of people is when you do something hard, you become friends really fast. You just really get bonded over these kind of experiences. And then after the ride, when you did survive, you get to all hang out and tell your war stories, hear what the other people out on the rides had to say. So I don't know. It is like a strange thing. You're like, I'm out here in the 30s soaking wet, riding through mud. This is fun. But yeah, it is. And I don't know. It's rewarding too. Everything to me doesn't need to be a challenge, but once in a while, you know, I don't know.
Oh, come on, go through. Oh.
So I have been surprised how well my fenders have done off-road. This day was not that day, though. Oh, man, did I pull a lot of sticks out of the spokes and fenders.
Three bull effectively shorter.
Yeah. Oh, are they humans?
So this section of the route on the cue sheet said it was nearly 100% unrideable. And it turned out to be true. You could hop on your bike, but you're going to have to hop right back off so fast. Pretty much just ended up walking a lot. You're always throwing your bike over some log or climbing up a riverbank or whatever it may have been. So we came to a section where we were afraid we got a little off course. We looked and the trail kind of ended along the river, but there was supposed to be a bridge somewhere. Part of the trail broke off up a hill to the left. That didn't seem right, but we saw a road and we decided just to walk across this river to get there. I was saying my feet can't get any more wet anyways, but when I stepped into the river, I realized they could get a little bit more wet. So after waiting up for everybody who wanted to get across the river, I started to get pretty chilled. I put my windbreaker on, and there were some really steep road climbs, but I was happy for them because those are what warmed me back up. We also ran into someone who came up from behind, and they did cross the bridge, so we did know that we were back on course over on the road. We just cut off basically, I don't know, a mile or two.
What's up?
What's up, dude?
I'm gonna keep going.
Do it.
So it had taken us 4 hours and 25 minutes to ride the 20 miles to lunch. We jumped on the back of the box truck. Originally, I was like, man, we cannot take too long because I'm going to get so chilled. There were some decisions to be made, and people made different decisions that had different consequences. So I happened to be there at the same time as Brad, and then because he had leapfrogged us because we got kind of lost, and then also Miggy, who is one of the organizers. And Miggy was saying, if you just want to take roads back, you can, but you will be descending for miles. I decided I can't do that. That would just be way too cold. I was already chilled. I put my rain cape back on. I had all my clothes on at this point. I was thinking of changing into dry socks, but I couldn't even bring myself to sit down and do it. It was raining. So I followed Miggy and some other people out of lunch right back into the woods. Someone asked Miggy how rideable this section of woods were, and he said, about 50-50. So that was kind of a little bit heartbreaking to hear, but I still knew it would be the right answer for me. He also said if we went through the woods in this section that we could take a road route back after it if we wanted to skip the rest of the single track, but then it wouldn't just be straight down. It would be a little more rolly. So that's what I gambled with. One of the guys I was riding with in this section was talking about how pretty it was, and he's right. When I looked around, there was mist through the trees, and it was just beautiful up here in the mountains. And I'm glad he said that to remind me of that perspective to look around and enjoy it a bit, because I'm not going to lie, I was cold, I was wet, I was tired, I was pretty banged up. I've still got some bruises from this ride, which was over a week ago. So it's just nice when there's someone around you with the positive attitude to be like, yes, we're out here for a reason, because it was just a little tougher after lunch. So at lunch, I switched to my dry wool gloves. What I really should have done is just doubled up the gloves, even though it would have meant still having my hands wet. They got soaked through anyways. My problem here was my hands got so cold. I could barely tell if I was turning the GoPro on or off. It was hard to shift for a while. It was just, man, it was a chilly day. This was tough being in the rain for this long. My feet were cold too. I probably should have put on the dry socks. I never should have wore slip-on Vans. I should have had my winter 510s on for this ride. But the decisions we made when we were out on the road, Brad was talking about this. Again, check out the live stream if you want to hear it in his voice. But you just don't always make the best decisions when you're cold and tired. You just don't always think everything through. And then I also had a little bit of poor planning ahead of time with the optimistic view of a high of 47, which is not ever what it felt like out here in the mountains. Brad also said his decision to take that long road descent was a bad one. He said it's the coldest he's ever been on a bicycle, and him and our buddy Robin said they were actually pretty worried about themselves for a while. They both got in their cars and blasted the heat for like an hour when they got back. They beat us back because this single track took us so long to get through. I do want to be clear, though, that I would do this again. I would still choose this route. I would still go out and do it. It'd be nice to have the hindsight to choose the right clothes and make better decisions and maybe be involved in the route decisions. But, yeah, that's how it goes. This was beautiful. This was a fun ride. I love ATB style riding. I just wish it was, say, 10 degrees warmer or same temperature and not raining.
Still going.
That's super smooth. This is some chunky stuff.
If there was any thought of maybe we'll still hit the rest of the route as planned and all the other single track and go back into the woods, this last little chunky bit took that out of, I think, everybody. I also thought maybe I got lost here for a second. There was a route after lunch. I was just going too slow here to keep up with everybody, but my Wahoo wasn't really routing me through the woods here anyways. So even though I had a route, I couldn't tell where I was going. I still think going back into the woods instead of that long road descent was the right decision, but this was a long and tough section, much longer and tougher than I had anticipated.
My fingers are getting too cold to push the button.
So the other guys planned the road route back and I just followed along. I was actually, again, more happy when we were climbing than when we were descending. I don't know how long it was. I think we had about 8 miles to go on the road. I didn't film a bunch of it. Like I said, my fingers were frozen, and you heard me say there, I could barely even tell if I was turning the GoPro on or not. It felt good to roll back into the farm. I said to one of the guys next to me, this was the longest 37 miles of my life. And when you look at the time, elapsed time of over 7 hours, that's absolutely factually correct. It was also 4,000 feet of elevation. You would think that just instantly getting your dry clothes on would be the move. I walked over by the fire and I had my rain jacket on. I was already soaked, but the fire felt so good. I drank beers and stood by the fire for hours before I actually went and got my dry clothes on. I only finally did so I could go and get dinner, so I could stand in line for the food. Where I knew I'd freeze to death if I didn't do that.
My feet were dry the whole time.
I've just never gone dry.
It was so great to hear everyone's stories the rest of the evening, from people who got rides from strangers to the crew that just stayed in the box truck and rode back from lunch. Just everybody had a story to tell for sure.
Oh, now you do a big.
Will it into existence. Will it into existence.
Cheers, jokes.
I don't got any.
The raffle was a blast. Great prizes, just a lot of fun to boo the people who won the stuff that you wanted, you know.
This might be the lead-off clip for this video.
Oh no.
And just like Friday, Sunday was absolutely beautiful. We said our goodbyes, had some breakfast, got all packed up, and then hit the road. Our goal was to make it the entire way back. We were just going to do the 8-hour drive on Sunday. I do have to say thanks to Miggy and Ben O'Brien for doing all the organizing and planning, all their friends and the other volunteers who helped out. It was a blast. Thanks to all our friends, new and old, that we got to hang out with and just have a great time, even in challenging conditions. Mickey also had the cool idea to have a bunch of disposable cameras people could photograph with. I actually made that happen for him, so I'm, as we speak right now, scanning a ton of analog film. Unfortunately, I won't have it in time for this video, which I did, but follow Gunks Not Dead on Instagram, and you'll get to see those. This is a coffee shop called Cafe Wren we stop at on our way back from out east. Stopped here a couple years ago on the way back from Nutmeg, and we just absolutely love it. So that is going to do it for this one. Consider becoming a channel member if you want to support the videos I make here some more. But either way, thanks as always for watching. These are a lot of fun to make, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.